All right, welcome to the Liberty Block Live. I'm Mike Sennello, and I'm here today with Steffi Cole. Steffi, thanks for coming on to our show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
All right, so the topic for today is literature for libertarians. And Steffi is a maker of videos that cover a variety of topics, including film, literature, and just pop culture in general. Today, our topic is going to focus on books. So, Steffi, how can people follow you?
All right. I have a lot of different places you can follow me at. So my very favorite is Twitter. You can find me at @Steffi_Cole. I've got Instagram at Steffi_Cole. You can watch my videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Steffi Cole. And you can also go to my Patreon at patreon.com/Steffi Cole. And you can follow me on Goodreads if you're interested in the books I'm reading. It's goodreads.com/Steffi Cole, or _Cole, I believe.
Wonderful. All right. So just so you folks know at home, we will cap this interview off with some live Q&A. So if you've got questions to ask Steffi, especially as it relates to literature for libertarians, then go ahead and post them in those comments section right now, and we will get to them at the end. So Steffi, I always like to start off all of my interviews with basically introducing the interviewee themselves, like a get to know, in this case, Steffi Cole. So you've described yourself as a libertarian. Let's start off with, since that's really where we're headed to, what brought you into libertarianism generally?
Well, it all started back in about 2008, 2009. I had a friend who introduced me to a lot of conspiracy theorists and economics. And so I started learning, and that's where my journey began. And then I got into Ron Paul for 2012, got involved in his campaign, and then Gary Johnson, and then Austin Peterson's campaign for U.S. Senate. I was a huge volunteer for that. And then after that, I just kind of went off on my own, and I wanted to start learning more so that I could talk the talk and walk the walk.
So you've been a libertarian for actually quite some time then.
Yeah, a small L libertarian.
Oh, okay.
So not like an official big L. I was only a big L for a year.
Okay. And just briefly, what pulled you away from big L?
Well, I was a big L libertarian in like 2018. And what pulled me away was the fact that I was supporting a lot of Republican candidates, such as Justin Amash. Well, at the time, he's now independent, but Austin Peterson, he was Republican when he was running. So I didn't want to feel bad for supporting Republicans while I was a big L libertarian.
And for folks watching at home, yes, the reason I'm the one conducting this interview is because, well, our fearless leader is running as a candidate under the GOP ticket, so perfectly understandable your concerns there. So I think you mentioned just a minute ago that the big pull towards libertarianism for you was the economic argument. Do I have that correct?
It was actually more so the conspiracy theories. They freaked me out enough to want to get involved. It was the scare tactics.
Really?
Yes.
Would they still work on you right now?
Not right now. I mean, I still buy bottled spring water because I am worried that there's, fluoride in the water. So that one has stuck with me all of these years. I haven't given that one up yet.
Yeah, I mean, and the only conspiracy I subscribe to, if you call it that, and if you can call that a subscription, is going to be, well, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. But I think everyone subscribes to that.
That's the newest one, and I think most of us would agree.
Yeah.
Libertarians are not.
Yeah. So, all right. So could you give me an example of one of these theories that brought you to libertarianism? Just briefly.
I would say, well, I know I was into the 9/11 conspiracy theories at the time. Now that I've learned more, I'm not so sure that it's true. I was also into chemtrails, too.
Okay.
Like, I would look up in the skies, and I'd be like, those are chemtrails, oh my God. But now I've heard, other things to prove that they're really not chemicals in the air. So things like that. But I would say mostly it was war, like the fear of war happening.
You mean in general, or was there a specific war you're referring to?
I would say more so in the Middle East, the wars in the Middle East.
Okay, and
that just freaked me out.
All right, so this is a conversation about literature. So let's work this into libertarian literature. I've actually watched a lot of your videos on your YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel of my own. It's called Mike Reads, where you and I have actually done very overlapping book reviews and have a very overlapping. Yeah, that's actually how I ran into you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So if you want to check that out, you guys can. So the book actually that you read, that you did a review on, was Mises's
Human Action.
Human Action. If I can get that on center there. Yeah, which took you apparently 5 months and has taken me like 6 months even to get to halfway through that volume. Yeah, I'm a slow reader, and we're going to get into that topic shortly, folks. Believe me. So I haven't been an avid reader for very long, and I did it as a deliberate and concerted effort to better inform myself on these topics, really before I delved deeper into the political purview. So I want to know what it is have you always been interested in the literature that you've been reading, or is that something that's come about relatively recently?
No, it's come about recently. Like after Austin Peterson's campaign, that's when I actually had the time to start reading. Back, in like 2008, 2009, I was in college. So I was mostly reading my college books. I didn't have time to, read other things that I enjoyed. I've also read a lot of self-help books. So I've read a lot of things that are off topic from libertarianism. The very first book that I read regarding libertarianism was, I think, in like 2010-ish, and it was Libertarianism in One Lesson. And that's just basically a rundown of all of the libertarian ideas, so I could understand them.
So that actually sounds like it stole the title from Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson.
I'd say so. That book definitely came afterwards.
All right, so we're gonna veer a little bit away from the specifics of books in general, and then we're gonna come right back to that. And that is that what I've always preached is it is far more important than anything to get yourself informed about a topic before you start getting yourself involved in the topic. And that's a huge part of why I want to do this video, because I want people to go out there and actually do what is necessary to better inform themselves. So would you say that idea of getting yourself better informed, did that have any effect on your politics in general? Did that have any effect on your worldview, especially as you started to read this literature?
Absolutely. I mean, before, again, in like 2008, 2009, I used to mostly model my views after Ron Paul. So whatever he thought, I pretty much thought as well. And because I wasn't super knowledgeable about the behind-the-scenes stuff, I would debate a lot. I would fight a lot with people online just because I didn't have those facts. And I would post like really weird articles that would freak people out. So it wasn't very helpful at all for my cause. But now that I'm reading books, I have facts to back me up. And now I don't have to yell at people and argue with them. I can just say, listen, these are the facts. This is what I've learned. Take it or leave it, and let's just be kind to each other.
Okay, so would you agree then that, because I've posited this opinion here, better informing yourself tends to moderate, if nothing else, your tone. I think it tends to moderate people generally.
Absolutely. Yes, it makes people respect you more because they're like, wow, this person's really studied this stuff. And most of these people online who are bullying people, they have not studied this stuff. They're just throwing out random things they've read in memes.
Yeah, it's like a reactionary. I'll say politic, but it's a reactionary worldview. Yeah, the we need to win at all costs. Well, not necessarily at all costs. We need to win rather than being correct. And so I've actually gone so far as to take this to the point of, and let's see how far you're willing to take this. I would rather have people go out and get themselves a library card than a voter registration card. That's the way I put it.
Yeah, in ways. Knowledgeable people can be extremely powerful. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Right. So folks at home, I'm going to be doing either a video on this or a paper on this. An article on this on the Liberty Block, so look out for it. We have some problems within our ranks when it comes to people who don't have the ability to moderate even their own tone. And I think this is something that can really help that. So let's move right back to what we were talking about more specifically with the books. What is it that? Well, let's start with the books that have most informed you. What are the types of books that most inform you today?
I would say that Human Action is the book that I pretty much started with, which is kind of surprising. I should have started with Economics in One Lesson, because that's kind of the building block to Human Action. But I don't know, I just kind of like to dive in there. So Human Action really did have a big influence on everything. Obviously, I've forgotten a lot of it, because as you know, there's so much.
And he writes in a very, very, very high level. Like, he does not write to the common reader.
Exactly. And a lot of these books that you're going to read about libertarianism, they don't really match how we talk today in this modern world. The other book that really, really inspired me was For a New Liberty by Rothbard.
For a New Liberty by Rothbard. Cool.
Yeah, that's more of like an anarchist book. So it's kind of like
Hey, Elliot, if you're watching,
one lesson book.
we'll have to pass that on to our fearless leader. Yeah, we had an anarchy debate actually on the Liberty Block. So folks, if you get the chance to see the Libertarian debate over anarchy, check that out. I will post the link in this video's description after we get done, so you guys can check that out if you haven't seen it already. So I asked you about the books that most informed you. What would you say is the topic that you would find would most inform your worldview today? So think something like philosophy, economics, history. What would be a top nonfiction maybe?
Yeah, well, mostly everything I read is nonfiction, aside from 1984 and Atlas Shrugged, which I really enjoyed. But I would say that I want to learn more about war history. That's definitely on my list, because I really don't know much about it, aside from like World War I and World War II. All the other wars in between, I really need more education on.
So then we've got the books that have informed you, that have provided your information for you. What about the books that interest you? What's the topics that interest you most?
The topics that interest me most. Well, I definitely would say that economics is starting to get boring for me. So that's probably not interesting. Now that I've been through so many, I just read Self-Reliance. So that was more of a, self-help type of book. I really want to read Walden. So I guess I love philosophy and psychological books. So I guess that's not completely libertarian, but you can kind of mold it into your libertarian philosophy.
Well, for that matter, I read Star Wars on the side, and that has absolutely nothing to do with libertarianism. It's just something that interests me. And honestly, exactly. I honestly think that people who are doing what I'm suggesting doing is, get out the literature and start informing yourself. It's tough for somebody who has never really been into reading to get into something like Human Action, because that is a brutal read.
Oh, yeah. So start with Economics in One Lesson. Yep. That's an easy reader.
Yep. I actually did a video on this on my channel where I reviewed some books. Yeah. And if you're looking to get into economics, Steffi is 100% right. The book to start with is Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. Again,
definitely start too with like Ron Paul books or Judge Napolitano, more modern day figures that talk about these topics.
Yeah, I've read a lot of Thomas Sowell. He does actually write to the common reader, and it's a very easy read, even though some of his books are that thick. It's still a very digestible read for the common reader. And I was going to say that you don't need to necessarily be stuck in this world of better informing yourself if you're just trying to start getting into reading, because I think that taking a breath and reading like Star Wars will help people acclimate themselves just to taking the time to sit down and read, especially for somebody like me who had so much trouble doing that to begin with. And that's actually the next question I wanted to ask of you. So there are a lot of people out there that have trouble getting into reading in the first place, especially folks like me who read so slow. So what advice would you give to them?
Well, I have trouble myself. I've been trying to get through The Wealth of Nations, and I'm not even through the second chapter yet. Yeah, exactly. It's just so long and so big, and you're just like, ugh, this is never going to end. So I would just say, just take it bit by bit. Try to set aside 10 minutes a day, even when you first wake up in the morning, or 10 minutes before you go to sleep. That's what's best for me.
Do you try to?
Yeah. Oh, go on.
Do you try to stick to one book at a time?
Yes, I absolutely do. I do not like to read more than one book at a time. But I think with The Wealth of Nations, because I have to continue with my review videos, I'm going to be reading smaller books at the same time. because who knows when I'm going to review The Wealth of Nations. It could be many months from now.
I actually just wrapped up my read on my channel. I actually do the read itself because it's in the public domain, so I just read it out loud on the camera so everyone can join in.
Which book do you read aloud?
I just finished up The Wealth of Nations, actually.
You read that entire book aloud on camera?
It took 100 reads.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I'm surprised you still have a voice left.
It took 100 reads of about 30 to 45 minutes apiece, and I just finished that on Monday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to look at that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
I'll send you a link to my channel when we get done.
Okay.
So you can check that out. I also did some Thomas Sowell, and I've started to get into the Federalist Papers, so you can check that out too. I actually do the reads.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. The other thing that really interests me is more things on the Constitution, just so I can understand it better, because it really is a lot to comprehend, especially my little Constitution guide that I have that I try to reread.
Do you have trouble with the older books, the English of the older books, like The Wealth of Nations?
Oh yeah, big time.
So
like, I'll be reading things and it'll just like go over my head, and I'll have to like reread it like at least 5 times.
So what would your general advice be to people who are reading something like The Wealth of Nations, which, by the way, I don't recommend people start with at all. I think you should have a full year under your belt of doing this reading in economics before you even attempt it. So what would your advice be to people who are reading these older books and are struggling with the English of 250 years ago?
I would say have your dictionary close by, or, I just type in words on Google so I can understand them better. And also have Cliff Notes close by too, like Spark Notes. I know it's kind of like cheating, but it really helps you comprehend what you're reading. So read a little bit and then read some Spark Notes and be like, okay, this makes sense. Now I can see it.
So are you an electronic fan, or you prefer the tangible book?
I'm more of a tangible person. Absolutely. I like to highlight. I like to write. That's how I learn best.
And I was just going to make that mention. Folks that are struggling to do this sort of thing, do underline, do take notes, write in the margins, get your sticky notes, put it in there. That is going to help you better comprehend it. I'm assuming you're on board with that.
Yeah, and especially for my reviews, while I'm reading a book, I'm jotting down notes about my reactions, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, just so I can remember at the end so I can talk about it.
Okay.
Because if you remember your experience, then that'll, help you remember what the book was about.
Did you ever struggle with a review?
Ever struggle doing a review?
Well, coming up with it. I mean, there are books where, for instance, Hayek's The Road to Serfdom. I struggled with my review on that one because he writes in such a circuitous manner. Like chapter 10 on is amazing. It's like really good stuff. But chapters 3 through 10, when I did my review, I actually suggested if you're like me and we get it by chapter 3, skip to chapter 10 because it's so much, and there's 65 pages of introductions.
Yes, I do remember that. I've kind of morphed my reviews a little bit over the months. So I think I used to do more of like a summary of the book and, talk a lot about the content. But now I've learned, at least for my reviews, I don't want to give away so much of the content because that's why people are going to be reading the book. They want to learn things. I more so just want to tell you like my overall experience and how I liked it, so you can make an informed decision of if you even want to read the book or if it interests you.
All right, so let's give us a taste. What was something you read recently that you can give us, say, a 30 or 60 second review of?
Well, I actually just released my video about self-reliance.
Well, we don't want to ruin the surprise for everyone, right?
It's out now.
Okay, so give us a taste.
Yeah, that was actually a shorter review because the self-reliance essay is only like 21 pages. So basically, I would say, in a nutshell, self-reliance is basically saying, you do you, boo. I actually said that because I like to, summarize these things into like one sentence and be like, this is pretty much what it is in a nutshell. This is what you're getting. Yeah.
So how far into Wealth of Nations are you right now?
Again, I think I'm in like the second chapter.
Second chapter or the second book?
Second chapter.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. You've got a year and a half ahead of you if you read as slow as I do.
I've gotten extremely distracted because I also do like cooking videos too, and I also watch a lot of movies. So it's like between all of those things, I just don't have time anymore.
So, all right. So do you have anything else on the go, and what should people look out for?
Like books that I'm reading in progress?
Yeah,
Or
I mean, you said because Wealth of Nations is so massive, I'm sure you've got
Mhm.
some shorter books that you're in the middle of and that people
Yeah.
can look out for reviews.
Well, I actually just bought a book on Amazon today, and it's about immigration. It's actually like a graphic novel about immigration. So it's
Really
going to be
cool.
more fun. Yes. Yeah. So I'm trying to find more like essays or just fun short books
Okay.
so I can just not be so stuck in this boring Wealth of Nations all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's your wait till you get to book two, because he spends I think it's 200 pages on the history of the inflation of the price of silver in
Oh,
over 50 years from 1600 to 1650. So have fun with that read.
oh boy.
Yeah.
I do like silver though, I must say. I like silver and gold. I'm a fan.
Oh, but that's part of the libertarian mantra, right?
Hmm.
All right. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about today? We're right around the 20-minute mark. I was hoping to limit ourselves to an hour, but if we go beyond, if we get shorter than that, that's no problem. It's a very specific topic, so I don't think that we need to spend all that much time on it. So, before we move on, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I would just say to everybody out there, if you want to learn more, just pick up a book, start reading anything. The more practice you get, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because I've been reading now consistently since like 2018, almost 2019, and so it's getting a lot easier.
That's about when I started, actually.
Hmm.
So actually, just before we move on, so very specifically, let's get right to the point. So you've spoken with a lot of libertarians. Give me one or two books that you think libertarians, as a rule, should actually get their hands on that they typically haven't really read all that much of.
Hmm. Well, I would definitely say Economics in One Lesson. As I said, let's see what else. Here, I'm on my Goodreads. I'll tell you, I read the Communist Manifesto. It's good as a libertarian to read things from another side
Yes.
so that you know where these people are coming from.
Yep. That even if it is
Yeah.
the backwards Keynesian economics, what was it?
Yep.
What did Keynes write? It was Keynes's wealth, poverty, and theory
Oh,
of
yeah, I'm not sure.
Keynes's general theory. It's everyone calls it
Hmm.
Keynes's general theory, which I
Right.
actually did a
You need to try to understand this
Mhm.
madness.
Yeah, and that one was the one I struggled with. That one was when I got 6 chapters in, and just after I think I made 3 separate attempts at it and made it 6 chapters in and just couldn't go any further. Not because I didn't like it, but just because it was just all over the place, and the publishing company that published this particular version did a crap job of publishing it. So,
Yes, you do have to really be aware of that. A lot of these like translated books, they can be a horrible translation and you can have a really bad time. Like I got The Law by Bastiat. It was a horrible translation. So I ended up having to read it online actually to make it easier.
yeah, that's actually one that you guys at home should be probably saving for the end, even though it brings up the broken window fallacy, which is a great philosophical argument to have. Tell me you disagree or agree with that matter. Bastia is probably something you should shelve for a little while.
I don't know why. Why do you think
Oh,
so?
so the reason I think so is because it's the same reason with Human Action and with
Uh-huh.
Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. I think it's better
Yeah.
to start with somebody like Hazlitt, start with somebody like Sowell's Economic Facts and Fallacies, where you have a very basic starting point, and then you can expand from there because these are very difficult reads.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. Sometimes those shorter books are less intimidating to people. So like The Law is extremely
Oh,
short.
okay, then we
Or
must be
like
thinking
a
about
lot
the
of these
okay.
essays are really short. So, even if it's super hard to get through, at least you can say, hey, I read it because it was super short.
So, have you read, since you said you've read a whole bunch of self-help books, I actually just picked up, and just for my own personal take, I'd love to get a review
Yeah.
if you've read it, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules.
Oh, no, I've never read that. I have never read any of Jordan Peterson's stuff,
Well,
actually.
I don't recommend reading his, oh God, I can't remember, Maps of Meaning right away,
Oh,
because
really?
that is, if you thought Human Action was a brutal slog,
Uh-huh.
right, like, Jordan Peterson really makes that book difficult. So
Oh.
I don't know. It's not, I think, a very good starting point either. I think with Jordan Peterson, we're probably talking 12 Simple Rules, but We'll find out when I get the chance to actually sit down and read that, because I just bought it like 2 weeks ago.
Doesn't he talk about like making your bed or something? I feel like people have like referenced that book, or like cleaning your room.
Yeah, clean your room.
Know. Yeah,
so,
something about
I
that.
mean, from what I understand from all the interviews I've seen, it's basically one of those books that says, look, before you take on the world, take on yourself.
Oh, I completely agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of the conversation that I wanted to have in tonight, is to, like, before you go out into the world of politics, before you go vermin supreme yourself, do the reading first. Yeah. I would rather have a very informed electorate than a very active participation level.
And I would say it would actually help to read self-help books for libertarians, because if you're confident with yourself and you know how to conduct yourself appropriately, you're going to be so much more effective with your message.
Yes. Yep. And we do have a problem, and I'm going to make an article about all of the problems that we have as an organization and that we have as a philosophy in general, just as individuals within libertarianism. And that's something that you bring up. One of the things that I would recommend, based on what you just said too, is that you do have to actually get out there. You do have to actually like interact with people. I know libertarians love to be just left alone, but this is really going to help you moving forward. This is really going to help you with your career,
Yeah, well, I will say, I mean, before all of this, I've had bad anxiety my whole life. I hate speaking in front of large groups of people. So building your confidence is huge. During the Austin Peterson campaign, I literally was shaking before I started phone banking. Me and my friend April, we were practicing on the phone, and we were so scared of being rejected because we were self-conscious, of our phone banking skills. So it's very, very important to build up your self-esteem.
So do you think that was a reflection of something about growing up? I grew up in a really small town, and I noticed that people that have grown up in small towns really don't get this opportunity to speak publicly very often. And is that something that you ran into?
No, I mean, I've grown up in the suburbs. I went to schools where I had to, say a lot of speeches, recite poetry, things like that. Anxiety is just ingrained in my body.
All right.
It's just how I was born. And so it's a struggle to get over, but I would say the more you practice, the easier it gets. The more confident you become with your brain.
Okay, wonderful. So we actually have quite a bit of activity here in the comments section.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let me move the Skype thing out of the way.
Oh my gosh.
So last second before we hop on into our Q&A, just a reminder to everybody, Steffi, how can people reach you?
All right. You can reach me on my favorite platform, Twitter. I'm like addicted to that thing. So at Steffi_Cole, Instagram at Steffi_Cole, YouTube, youtube.com/Steffi Cole, my Patreon, patreon.com/Steffi Cole, and you can follow my Goodreads, goodreads.com/Steffi_Cole. Oh, and on Facebook at Real Steffi Cole.
Wonderful. All right. So Stephen asks us, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but let's ask it anyways. You read Atlas Shrugged and think it's fiction?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of realistic bits in there. I really did enjoy Atlas Shrugged. I really enjoyed 1984. 1984 is so realistic. It's like barely fiction.
Yeah, with Think Speak and Big Brother, and yeah.
The torture scenes. Yep. Oh my God, this happens in real life.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of how, like, have you seen the movie Idiocracy?
No, I haven't.
You need to see it. So I'm sure you can get your hands on it cheap. I'm sure it's going to help your channel to do a review on it. It's a comedy, and it's really dumb, but Mike Judge in 2005 predicted the world of 2505. And you're going to love it. I can't really give you more information than that, but you're going to absolutely love it. And it's going to actually be kind of scary, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. I can do that.
Yeah. Watch it, do a review on it on your channel, because people are going to love that.
All right.
And so are you. But cool. All right. So Elliot asks, is Basic Economics an easy read? Did you actually read Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell?
No, I didn't. I only read economics in one lesson.
Okay, I did read Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. Elliot, I did a review on my channel. That's Mike Reads. If you go to YouTube and search Mike Reads, I did a review of Basic Economics on that channel. I'll just give you the 30-second version. It's a lot, but it's a very easy read. Thomas Sowell loves to write to the common reader, so it's something that you could easily read as a freshman in high school and comprehend exactly what he's talking about. It's structured really well. I think he intends to write it as a textbook, but it does not come across as a textbook. It comes across more like The Wealth of Nations in the way it's structured. But yeah, very easy read, even though it's about 600 pages long. It took me about a month, and I'm a very slow reader, so the pages with Thomas Sowell fly by. He has very huge font, huge spacing, huge margins. He's somebody that I think you're going to enjoy, Elliot. All right, let's see what else.
This actually just made me think of something. I had subscribed to Liberty Classroom, which is a Thomas Woods. Basically, it's a ton of podcasts that will teach you about history, economics, everything. So if you're more of a listener and not so much a reader, I would highly recommend Liberty Classroom.
Liberty Classroom. Do they have a YouTube page or a Facebook page you can link?
It's libertyclassroom.com.
Libertyclassroom.com.
So you can just go there. Yeah, I was a subscriber for about a year, but then it's like I just didn't have enough time to listen because the podcasts were, like 45 minutes to an hour each.
All right. So Kate asks, what do you recommend for people? This is a great question. What do you recommend for people who usually read fiction who want to transition to nonfiction books with views of libertarianism? And before you answer that question, I just want to interject. This is actually a sharp divide between men and women. Men tend towards nonfiction. Women tend towards fiction. So just an interesting tidbit. So what do you recommend for people who want to get into nonfiction who have been reading fiction with views towards libertarianism?
Well, I would say, because my favorite is actually nonfiction. Same with movies, too. I like movies based on true stories, or else I can't get into them very well. So if you've already read 1984 and Atlas Shrugged, because that's fiction, then I would say, let's see, to read nonfiction, I would say read biographies about people. Because to me, that's a little bit more fun. Like you're getting to know someone. It's a little bit more lighthearted.
That's
so
actually
maybe start there. Read biographies.
That's actually a great recommendation. All right, let's see. I think we might be done here. Let me just scroll down, make sure we got some more questions. That graphic novel you mentioned. I actually want to take a note of that. What was the name of that graphic novel? Asked Dan.
Yeah, let me go in my email here. I know it was about immigration, but I got to get the actual title here because it was kind of long. Here we go. Okay, so it is called... Oh, come on. Does it not have the title of it here? Come on, show me. Oh, no, I have to sign in. Sorry.
All right, well, we will get back to you guys with that. Well, I'll try to post that in the description of this video when we get wrapped up.
I'll find it out in 2 seconds, I promise. Okay, it's called Open Borders, The Science and Ethics of Immigration. And it's by Brian Kaplan, Caplan.
Kaplan of Kaplan Books?
I have no idea. But he writes other things, too, that seem interesting.
Well, if you don't like that graphic novel, maybe there's other things that Brian Kaplan's written that you guys can check out.
Yeah, there's actually this other graphic novel that I got from YaleCon. I've been meaning to read it. It's the Anthem graphic novel. So maybe this is actually going to be something I'll read.
I did not know that Ayn Rand did a graphic novel.
She didn't really. It's adapted by other people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's just based on it, I think. One of the most important books ever written on the power of individuality and the threat of unchecked governmental power.
So Elliot says, this is actually just an FYI, the Liberty Block actually has a reading list right on the homepage, so folks, you guys can check that out. Elliot,
very cool.
Elliot also, I think I said think speak for whatever reason with 1984. It's double speak, so we're going to make that correction.
Oh, I think I actually made that mistake in my review. I called it the wrong thing, and nobody noticed, thankfully.
All right. Why isn't every book here already on the Liberty Block reading list? Well, folks, that is coming from our fearless leader, so you tell me, Elliot. Sounds like Steffi is not a big fan of Audible books. This is asked by Steven. What are your thoughts on Audible books?
That is true. I'm a really bad listener, so my comprehension when I listen to something, it just goes right over my head. Like if I'm driving, I'm focusing on the road and other things, so I get distracted very easily. But I did listen to a little bit of the audiobook for Self-Reliance after reading the book. So that kind of helped. I just wanted to get it in my mind more, so that's why I turned it on, just to give me more of a review.
I'm actually with you on that one. If I turn on an audiobook, I fall asleep. I get too distracted. I can't do it. If I'm gonna read, I want to sit down and focus. And that
Yeah.
I think that's a personal thing. I don't think that's like something I would recommend to everyone. It's whatever you feel like.
Especially these harder books
Yes.
that are in, older style English. It's like, if they're speaking in like Shakespeare language, you're like, what? And then you'd have to have your dictionary hurrying up, like, looking up all the words
Right.
while they're talking. You're like, stop!
Right, and even then, it's like sometimes there are figures of speech that they use that are just not in common parlance today. Just as a brief aside, so everyone understands, modern English actually basically began with Shakespeare.
Yes, somebody corrected me
yeah.
on that. Yes, because I did call it Old English,
Right.
and someone's like, it's not Old English.
No, a common misnomer. Old English is before the Norman invasion of 1066. So, like, you're talking like Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is actually Middle English. It's not Modern English. It's Middle English. So that would be before 1500 or so. Old English would be like Beowulf. And folks, if you ever saw Beowulf, it doesn't look like anything. It looks like Chinese.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think I had to read that in high school.
You certainly read a translation, because there's no way you read the original English. It doesn't look anything like English. All right, so we've got a comment here that isn't really a question, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Stuart writes, the Gulag Archipelago was amazing. It's long, but is action packed, like jaw on the floor constantly. That was actually by Solzhenitsyn. I'm just wondering if you had a chance to actually try that out.
No, I have never read the Gulag Archipelago. I don't really know what it's about. Is it about the Gulag?
So Solzhenitsyn was a guy who actually survived, was one of the very, 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 very few survivors of the Gulags.
Oh, this sounds really interesting,
Yeah,
actually.
so I think it's technically fiction,
Yeah?
but it's like basically just a retelling of his story. It's massive. He's not wrong. It's like 2,000 pages long.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, that's way down the road for me. when I get enough time to sit down and read 2,000 pages of translated Russian, we'll get time.
Well, when you say Gulag, it actually makes me laugh, because the GIF, however you say it, on Twitter, they took away the off to the Gulag one. So you can't post that anymore.
Really?
Because people were getting kicked off of Twitter for posting off to the Gulag. It was like going like that. Yeah.
Yep. The same people, I'm assuming, that were getting kicked off of Twitter for Learn to Code.
Probably.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that topic. All right, so it looks like we've answered all of our questions here. We got wrapped up in 30